Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Build Your Village podcast. This is for heart-driven women business owners raising kids and consciousness. And I'm back with another guest. Today, I have Kimra Luna. I am so excited for you to meet her today. I just want to give you a little insight into Kimra and the work that she's up to right now. So, for those of you who don't know, Kimra Luna is a cosmic sensuality coach and pleasure activist. She is the founder of the Cosmic Connection Coven community on Discord and is the host of the Riot Doll podcast. Her podcast and Twitch channel cover topics on self-healing, self-love, relationships, sex, music, sensuality, love, psychology, and activism. Her program, Slowing the F Down, helps you discover your deepest desires, connect with your personal pleasure, and shed the shame so you can channel your inner creatrix and live the life you deserve. Kimra's been featured in Forbes Inc. magazine and the New York Times and has been interviewed on over 100 podcasts. She is a single mom to 3 boys, wow, and spends her free time going to punk shows, making vegan food for her family and friends. And you can find out more about her work at kimraluna.com. So I just want to say also, I have had the chance to work personally with Kimra, and what I love and what sets her apart is how real and authentic and just very results driven. And we had a chance to work a while back, and I just have loved that. So I'm so excited to have you on today, Kimra. Welcome.
Thank you for having me, and excited to talk about these topics today because they're not typically what people interview me for. So, but I'm excited to talk about it.
Cool. Yes. Awesome. Yeah. This is really a space for us to share what I think moms and business owners don't always get a chance to really unpack and, allow people to see that you don't have to do it all. And I think that's the thing, is we all try to do it all. So I want to first set the stage a little bit and find out what your situation's like with parenting right now. Like, you have 3 boys, and, obviously we're in a crazy time right now where school and all the things are up in the air. So just kind of give me a sense what life is like for you just right now with running your business and how you spend your time with your family.
Yeah, I'm co-parenting with my ex-husband, who actually now lives with us. During COVID times, we decided that was going to be what's best for the kids. All 3 of the kids are not at school. They're all homeschooled. And so, he does the homeschool 2 days a week, and then I do the homeschool 2 days a week. And my youngest son is also autistic. So we have therapy that we have to, bring him to a few days a week. And so we take turns doing that. And that gives me some space to be able to run my business, and he's able to work his job, and his job works from home. So we've decided to do this non-typical co-parenting situation. Most people who are going through divorce and such wouldn't probably want this to be their situation, but we've decided to do that and just get along for the kids, type of thing, so that they can have the best experience, because COVID's so weird and they're so distanced from people, and we wanted to make sure that if anything, they're able to keep a really strong relationship with us as parents.
Wow, that sounds like some mature parents who you obviously have had to do some work, I would think, to get to that place.
Yes.
And I love that you're going there. I love that you bring this up, because I think some people don't even think about that kind of option, and because of the conditioning we may have. So what did you have to do to kind of come to terms with that? I'm just, if you don't mind sharing a little bit about how that
yeah, and I don't even know if I'm all the way to terms with it, really. But it just made more sense for us to be able to, split the bills and be able to, because I'm transitioning into a new sort of niche and growing a whole new brand. It just made a lot of sense to be able to have that. I had hired a live-in nanny, but my live-in nanny ended up with 5 family members with COVID. And so they ended up moving to go spend time with the family. So I was so excited to have this live-in nanny and like, oh, we're going to make all this routine and everything. And actually, it just made sense for my ex-husband to just live here, because it's so difficult to find a nanny at this time. And so, we just, like I said, we had to just do what's best for the kids. I mean, obviously my preference would to be have a live-in nanny rather than my ex-husband. But like I said, we get along, and, we have the same parenting beliefs. So it works out okay. But I was super excited about my live-in nanny, and it was so sad. And my kids were like, oh my gosh, why did I have to leave? But we just have to do what's best for the family. And we've decided, what, our kids' mental health, our own mental health, we want to make sure that that's taken care of during a very weird time. I mean, we really don't know how long we are going to be in this current situation that we're in. We don't know how long it's going to be till the kids can go back to school again. I mean, they could go back to school, but all three of my kids have neurological things. So I don't want to risk them, getting COVID. So it's just a complex thing right now, but we've just really sat down, discussed things, made sure we knew what boundaries were, of course, made sure we knew, what we're expecting of each other in the situation. Really almost like a business negotiation, I guess, type of thing. Like these are your roles and these are my roles, and that actually has worked out, pretty well, and I'm very grateful that I'm able to actually do this. Not every single person gets along well enough with their ex to be able to have a situation like this, but it definitely has made things easier to have another adult in the house rather than it being me as a single mom with all three of the kids. I mean, I don't even know if I would be able to even really run a lot of the business. I would be just doing tiny little things here and there throughout the day, because homeschooling does take up, a pretty significant chunk of the day.
Absolutely. I'm so glad to hear that it's worked out as best as it can for you. That's really huge commitment. And I get that you have so much on the table to consider. It's like running a business, kids, family, now you're a teacher. And, I'm just curious to know what your process because I know there's a lot of tools and techniques and processes that people teach and you teach too in the work that you're doing now, moving from, the work more from business to relationships. And what kind of tools and techniques do you actually use for yourself to process when things come up and are really stressful and really challenging for you?
Yeah, I've read a lot of books on nervous system regulation. So looking at different processes, for myself personally, the biggest thing for me is actually taking a shower before I make decisions. So if something comes up, it's just just let me take a shower so I can just I don't know, it just refocuses me somehow. And it just really helps me get focused. And then I can finally be okay, this is what's going to be the best decision for us. This is how, we should move forward with this. And so luckily my kids are pretty chill. So there hasn't been too much stuff coming up, but there have been a few instances where it was you know what, I just need to have a break. You give me some space, I get some space, let's do that for a little bit, and then we'll come back and intervene and have a discussion. And even when we were married, we did similar sort of things. So I think because I was married to him, we kind of know how each other work a little bit. So that's actually a little bit of an advantage. It might be different if it was a nanny that we're trying to, figure out certain things. But it's more about we just want to come to every decision of what's best for all of us involved, and so that everyone can feel good and complete, when we make some sort of decision. But it's mostly for me, it's I just need to take a shower. That's my really good self regulation type of tool for myself, is take a shower, then make a decision.
I get that. Yeah, it's really cleansing, right? I mean,
Yes.
It's something energetically just cleansing about the water rushing over you.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that there's this common denominator of, okay, well, what's best for the kids? It's
Mm-hmm.
you can kind of reevaluate what you're really focusing on as the end result. I find that works so much well for my husband and I too, is yeah, okay, things are stressing us out or we're upset about this, but what do we want the outcome to be? And then it makes it so much easier to like make better decisions.
Yeah, and when we are in this very stressful time, I mean, there's definitely things that have been very triggering to me. You know, I live in Idaho. There's some very severe racism that happened. We have a beautiful Anne Frank memorial. We actually have the largest Anne Frank memorial in the country, and people defaced it with swastika stickers just a few nights ago. Like, there's a lot of things that are coming up in our world also that are very triggering. And so for myself, it takes a lot of me doing my own work, a lot of journaling, a lot of like, if I don't journal, like, I think my brain just would lose it, you know. Like, I really like need to journal and like write out like how I'm feeling, and that's really the best way for me to process. I'm also really like good at talking as a way to process, but I don't want to dump stuff on people. So I've kind of like did that into like journaling instead. And that makes it a little bit easier for me because I know I'm not just like dumping a bunch of like my traumas onto someone, you know, and journaling is kind of like that safe space for me to be like, okay, there's no judgment here. You know, I can just write and write and write. And if I need to like rip it out and burn it, that's fine too. But at least I can, you know, get some of that stuff out of me. And then I always feel better after I journal. Like, journaling is always a good release for me. When I can't like verbalize and get the stuff out, I can write it and get it out.
That's cool. That's awesome. Yeah. And I think sometimes it's integrating it and kind of transforming it a bit within ourselves first before we take it to our partner, or in your case you're co-parenting with your ex. And so it's like taking things fresh when we're triggered, when we're in that space, can be sometimes too much for that person to handle. And I realize that it's like there's that fine line of needing to communicate and talk about it, but then also bringing what is actually constructive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So
Absolutely.
one of the things I have seen in my work with just doing integration and healing and trauma and stuff with clients is that if we don't like work out our stuff from way back in the day when we were younger, it tends to come out later in our parenting. And or we have realization of like, this is how I was parenting or parented by my mom, my dad, whoever caregiver, and I don't want to be like that, but it still comes out. We still almost like as a response. Are there things that you have noticed that you have had to, like, I call it pattern interrupt, just like interrupt that cycle? Can you tell us a little bit about that and what that has looked like for you?
Absolutely. And it's been lots of things and a very long journey with it. I was raised in a very abusive home. And so one of my biggest fears when I was pregnant with my first son was that I would become an abusive parent. Like, I was very terrified of this. And I began reading all the parenting books, and like I kind of went a little hardcore into parenting books for a while there, because I wanted to know how to peacefully raise my children. And one of my biggest struggles has been yelling. That has been my biggest struggle throughout my parenting years. And I have been tremendously much better than I was when my sons first started getting a little older. I would notice myself like raising my voice and things, and I have to like understand, like, like there's certain things that may trigger me to want to yell, or I'm already frustrated about something else, and then all of a sudden I want to snap at my kids. And I find like there's all these like, here's the top 10 ways to like not yell at your children, and I'm just like, that doesn't work when you have PTSD, like that doesn't work when you had so much trauma from a childhood. You actually have to heal that trauma in order to not keep repeating those patterns over and over again. And so I feel like there's a zillion things that I disrupted. I mean, there's a lot of things I do that were the opposite of like how I was raised. And so my kids are actually raised in a peaceful home. They're not being abused. But my biggest struggle is certainly the yelling. And I think a lot of parents, they're very embarrassed and things like that. But I feel like we're getting better generation after generation. I feel like in the next few generations, like hopefully yelling or, you know, hitting our kids isn't going to be like a thing anymore, you know? So because it's still really common that people hit also, you know, and some people don't even think it's wrong still. So there's some parents that are like very much like, no, you don't do those things. And then others that are just like, well, that's the way I was raised, so I'm just going to do it that way, you know? And I'm certainly on the side of like, I don't want my kids to experience anything that I experienced as a child. And so I've been very conscious about raising them differently. And my ex-husband, he was raised in a very peaceful, loving type of environment. So I was able to, you know, talk to him about certain things. Because sometimes I just wouldn't know how to respond to stuff. Like I literally had to like pause myself and be like, wait, how do I respond to the situation? Like I literally had to be that consciously aware of like, how do I respond right now? You know, like I'm feeling very frustrated. I'm very angry right now. Like how do I say like, no, like I don't want to yell right now. So I'm just going to go in my room for a minute, you know, and like chill
It's like
out for a second, you know, and
feeling to be
it
okay.
takes yeah, it takes a lot of mindfulness. And I worked on my mindset work and healing work for so long that now it becomes more natural to me. And like I can start feeling if it's like, uh-oh, the kid's gonna do the dishes and now I don't have the pots and pans that I need or whatever it is. And then I can like feel that coming up and I'm just like, okay, chill out, Kimra. Like I literally had to tell myself, like, just chill out, just wash the pan yourself and cook dinner, you know, like you don't need to have like a meltdown. And it can be really complex. It takes a lot of work to do it. And I really hope that anybody listening like isn't feeling shame if they have been yelling at their kids, because it's such a big struggle for so many parents. And I feel like there's not enough people, like it needs to be destigmatized, you know, like people need to talk about it more and let people know like, hey, like it's okay, apologize to your kids, mend the relationship with your kids. Anytime I've ever yelled at my children, I have apologized. I have taken them to me and cuddled with them and spoke with them and let them know that that was not okay for me to do that, because I don't want them to grow up and think that that's okay for a partner to do to them. Right. I want them to know that that behavior is not okay. Right. And I ask them for forgiveness and I make it up to them, you know, and I think a lot of parents are very afraid to say that they made a mistake. And when actuality, when we admit that we make mistakes, we're showing our children that we are humans and we are actually trying and doing our best, rather than we are just trying to like dominate over them and control them and all that sort of stuff. And I feel like when we're apologizing, and my oldest son is now 11, like I feel like he's going to have less reasons to rebel against me or push against me when he knows that we can actually mend our relationship. And sometimes you have to do it over and over again, and that's completely okay. It's the same if you're in a relationship with a person. Sometimes you make a mistake and you have to mend over and over again. With our children, we have to do the same thing. And they're very intelligent. Like I think sometimes people think like, oh, the kids, they're just not going to remember, they're going to be fine or whatever. And it's like, no, kids really do remember these things. And it's really important to apologize and make amends and really just like, I mean, sometimes you got to step up and just say like, hey, I made a mistake, you know, and that was not okay for me to do that, or it wasn't okay for me to yell or ground you for something that, you know, like really didn't even matter or whatever it was.
Yeah, you're teaching them such an important skill to know that I can make a mistake, I can do something, and then I can actually do something about that.
Mm-hmm.
That's so healthy, even, you know, because I have struggled with that also with my daughter being raised and play a way where I started to realize the last few years how much PTSD, and finally to actually call it PTSD made me realize that that's why I have these trigger responses.
Mm-hmm.
Emotions weren't okay in my world, but
Yeah.
there were big emotions expressed at me. So I had this interesting dynamic where, you know, you got yelled at a lot, and such an interesting dynamic of being raised with an alcoholic and raised with a really like militant dad, two different dads.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like when messes are made, it's literally like a nervous system response of like, I get freaked out about it. And my mind's like, okay, this chill, this is okay. But you have this response and you yell or you get upset. And it's like almost like something takes over with the, I think with the trigger response is what I would call it. right? And so I totally can relate to that, where it's like, normally I'm such a chill, calm person. Why am I responding this way? And it wasn't until going back and healing that aspect and really doing the work that that pattern stopped. Or I should say, I'm much better at it. I'm not perfect.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like you have to really be self-aware.
It takes a lot of mindfulness to be a peaceful parent.
Yeah.
Like punishing and yelling and screaming is actually an easy thing to do.
If you were raised that way, right? If that was like how you were conditioned. Because my husband was not raised that way. So for him, it was really, he's like, this isn't behavior I was raised with. Why are we doing this?
Yeah, exactly. And same thing with my ex. Like, he wasn't raised in a home where there was like a lot of yelling and screaming and things like that. So then when I started raising my voice, he was kind of like, huh? What's happening? And then that also made me know, like, okay, like that wasn't okay. Like, I really have to work on this. And it is a thing, it's a daily thing for me. Like I don't know if it's ever gonna, my kids might become adults and then maybe it'll go away or something, but it's like it's definitely one of those things where it just depends on the day. Like, if I'm having a very stressful morning or something, it might not have anything to do with them, but then they might do something that is like a trigger or makes me have some sort of response, and I just have to forgive myself, give myself grace, and then also talk to them and get that forgiveness if it's something that I did wrong, and kids are very resilient. They will forgive you a lot of times, from what I've learned. And I feel I have a very wonderful relationship with my kids. They're very sweet. We have a very strong connection. And I think that more parents need to talk about this, talk about healing our childhood trauma, working on our inner child work. Like, it's a really important thing. And I feel like there's not enough I don't even know if there's any parenting books that are really like about like heal your childhood trauma so that you don't traumatize your children, like there needs to be more work and more content around that. And so I'm so grateful that you're doing a podcast like this where people can actually talk about this sort of stuff, because this is the real deal of parenting right here.
Yes. Yeah. And, the trauma also doesn't have to look like really abusive, hitting or like physical abuse. I think some of the trauma that we get raised in can also be very manipulative and, have good intentions even, and not realize like how it projects onto your kids, something that just completely squashes who they really are. Right. Because we're all so unique. Yeah. And I mean, I only have one kid, but as I've heard, and I'm sure you could testify to, that each kid is very different with how you address them, right? Like, you're not going to do the same like cookie cutter parenting approach with all three. Would you say that's true? Like, you've had to figure out how to adapt?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially like my middle son, he doesn't respond well to any sort of like if there's like, okay, if you do this, like you're gonna be grounded. Like, he doesn't respond to that. Like, he's just like, so like whatever, like, so it's like, huh? So it's like, it's like every kid is very different when it comes to their behaviors. Like, my oldest son, if I say no, like if you do that, like you're gonna lose video games or something, he'll completely behave. Like, he doesn't want to lose it. You're right. But my other son, he's just like, I don't care. So it's very different sorts of stuff. And then my youngest is autistic. And so he literally can't comprehend a punishment. So I can't even give them to him, right? Like, he literally cannot comprehend like a consequence to his actions. Like, he doesn't quite get that. And maybe he will when he's older, but right now he doesn't. And so I have one kid who doesn't care if there's a consequence, the other one who will do anything to not get the consequence, and then a younger one who he's probably never going to have really any consequences because he's autistic and he's just a sweet little angel. So it's like, every single kid is so different from each other. And I also noticed, like, if I do have a time where I raise my voice, my 8-year-old, he really closes up. Like, it's actually very terrifying to him.
Mhm.
And so that's another reason why, like, I've became so mindful is I can literally see a physical response in him as he literally shuts down. And so, and I don't want my kids to fear me in that way. I don't want them to see that as scary. But yeah, they're absolutely very, very different from each other. The way that it's like you have to parent them differently, even though it's in the same household. So it's very different. And like, even like my 8-year-old, like sometimes he still comes and sleeps with me in my bed. He tends to have anxiety. He was kind of born with anxiety. He's like always been like that. And then my oldest son is like, well, why does he get to? And that's what I said when we're like, well, it's a little bit better for his mental health and his anxiety, for him to sometimes sleep with me. Because my older son like is like, well, I want to sleep with you too. And it's like, but he doesn't want to do it for any other sort of reason. He's not scared of the dark or anything like that. But my other son is. So yeah, it's just very different for each kid. And luckily with my older son, because he's now 11, he really starts to get things a little bit more. But, a few years ago, he definitely didn't understand why my one kid would have one thing one way and the other one would have things another way. So
Yeah.
it's just one of those things you kind of have to just figure out as you're doing it,
It sounds like building your business too. It's like
Yeah.
you have to be super adaptive, right? And just figuring it out as you go. And, I want to kind of bring that piece into as well, because you run your own business. But I know, just knowing you do it with a team. Are you still with a team? And like, how do you make it all work with everything? What's your secret to keeping it all together, managing it? Do you have literally like a favorite resource or just something that just keeps you sane with everything you have going on?
Yeah, I am big on putting a checklist on my whiteboard,
Ah,
actually. It used to be where I would use a lot of tools and things like that, but I have found writing it on a whiteboard
mhm,
seems to be the best bet for me when it comes to like keeping things a little bit organized, knowing what actually needs to be completed. And I only put the most important things on there. Like
mhm,
all the other mundane things, I kind of like, keep that like I use a tool called ClickUp, which is like a project management tool.
mhm.
I used to use Asana for a long time and then I moved to ClickUp. But like I don't have a full team. I'm literally starting my business over from scratch. And so I currently don't have a team. I do have someone who helps me with like my podcast editing and video editing, but I don't have like a full team like I used to. And it's been interesting, especially during 2020 to do my business because with client work it's a little bit different. Like I had a few clients cancel on me like right at the beginning of COVID. Like I had like 3 clients all were just like, I can't pay anymore, like my husband lost his job, like that sort of stuff. So it ended up being like a weird thing where I was like, oh my gosh, like I might actually have to like try harder to get clients when usually it was a lot easier for me. Like usually it's like I could just make a post and then all of a sudden people would, be my client, or I'd send an email and people would sign up for a call or whatever. So it's been different during this COVID time because people's finances are also different as well. And when you're a service-based provider and what I provide would be considered luxury, like it's not like a necessity like food and water. So sometimes the selling has been a little bit different this year. It hasn't came as easy for everyone. Some people, this has been a super, super successful year in their business. I actually had one client who's been doing like $100,000 launches like back to back and like totally like crushing it.
Mhm.
And for other people, it's been like, you know what? We're just starting over again, and that's okay. I actually welcome like the rebirth of it. It's been really good for me. I actually spent a lot of time this year healing from trauma that happened from being in the coaching industry, just like ways that things were like colonizer type of marketing tactics and like ways that the industry wanted me to be in a certain way and things like that, which clearly I don't fit inside of any sort of box. I'm like the blue haired chick with like tattoos, so it is very different than a lot of people in my industry. And I mean, maybe not so much now, but definitely when I was first starting. And so it's just a different sort of year, and I've just given myself some grace and given myself space. It's allowed me more time to heal and be creative. I've been doing a lot more creative work, like on my iPad, like even with my branding, I'm putting a lot more art like onto my website and things like that I actually created, that I actually illustrated and stuff like that. And so I'm just like taking it slow. I really don't want to go fast. I built my previous business very fast, and I learned that was actually quite traumatizing. It actually wasn't very good for my nervous system to build like that. Like, it's not natural for people to have such a big capacity. And I had like 15,000 students within like a 4-year period of time. And that was just a lot. And it's not like in our natural, just like as human nature, to hold capacity for that much space. And so it was a lot for me. And it was this thing, and something I had learned in one of my trauma certifications was things that are too fast can be traumatizing. Things that are too much can be traumatizing. Right. And so it was like, there was too much, too fast. And then if it's too soon.
Yeah.
So like you weren't like mentally ready for it. You weren't emotionally ready for it. And I wasn't when it happened. Like my business, it's like I started it and then it just went, just skyrocketed out of nowhere. Like I didn't expect it at all. And then having to hold space for such a large amount of people was something I wasn't quite ready for, and I think I did a very good job at it. But I feel like it would have been better if I did more of a slow and steady wins the race sort of thing, which is what I'm doing now with my new business, is just taking it slow, taking it more one day at a time, just focusing on, supporting people, providing a lot of value with my content, and just, like I said, just keeping it slow.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like, just from an energetic standpoint, it's like mixing that masculine, feminine, not from a gender perspective, but from literally the energies of what is masculine, what's feminine. And I think we have to bring that energy into business more. So yes, I love the name of your Slow the F Down, literally.
Yeah.
Right? Like just, that's awesome. That's
yeah.
awesome.
And that's really the inspiration for like the name of that, because with my previous business, it was more like everything was just fast, 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 fast. And I was doing a meditation and like calling in my ancestors, and they literally told me that productivity upholds white supremacy. And that's a colonized thing in our society, that we're supposed to produce, like we're producers. And they told me, they said, you're not put here to be consumed, Kimra. That's not why you're here. So why are you expecting that? It's almost like you almost want to be consumed, because I think that's what I'm supposed to do. Because that's what we're just taught, our society, our industry, like sales, sales, sales. And it's like, this whole energy of it made so much sense. I was like, oh my gosh, thank you. That was the exact message I needed to hear, because I was putting pressure on myself to like crank out content and put things out there. And I mean, it took me 6 months just to get my freaking podcast launched. Like I had filmed it and recorded it and everything. It took a long time. And now it finally launched, and all these people were just like, where the hell is your podcast, Kimra? You've been talking about it like all year, and like it finally launched. And so, but I was putting all this pressure on myself to do that, when really I'm here to create. I'm here to spread love. I'm here to be kind. Like, I'm not here to just be consumed by people. And there's a lot of pressure when you have, large social media followings and stuff, to like keep creating content, and you got to post every day and all sort of stuff. I'm like, but I'm not inspired to post every day. So I'm not going to do that. When I'm inspired to post, I'm inspired to post. And that's when I'm going to do it. Right. And,
yes, a whole reinvention of how to do things. That is for sure.
And that's why I decided to create the Slowing the F Down program, so that people can start just tapping into their bodies. And it's not even necessarily for business owners. It's for anyone who really wants to slow things down and really tap back into themselves, tap into their intuition, feel their bodies again, heal their traumas, work on their stuff, do their journaling. Like we don't need to go fast. And I'm fast. I mean, my nickname is Speedy Gonzalez. Like I was called called that my whole life. Like my brothers call me the Energizer Bunny. Like, I mean, I was literally nicknamed for fast since I was a little girl. So I love doing stuff fast. Like, I'm like, yeah, let's get it done, you know? But I recognize that doing things fast is not optimal for me and my nervous system. So therefore, I'm no longer going to be being that way. And then my ancestors gave me a very clear, direct message that said, do not do that.
Yes.
You know, take things slow.
There's a season for everything. You got to look at what season are you in right now. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes maybe there will be things where things are speeding up, you know, maybe I have a book that I want to have coming out, and there is actual deadlines for that if you get a book deal, you know, like there might be some times where, yes, I am in that mode. But as of right now, I really think this is a good time to be slow. And especially with COVID and everything going on in the world, like slow really works for me at this time.
Yes. I'm seeing that with so many business owners, specifically just the ones I've known behind the scenes and stuff, how they're all reinventing how they do things.
Mm-hmm.
This is reinvention, this is rebirth, like you said. So
yeah.
Well, Kimra, this has been awesome. And I want to just hear if there's any last things you want to say to whoever's listening right now, just about being the provider, being the one who is, you know, here to bring about our new generation and the new kids coming in right now, and also your own work in the world. Like, what would you say to that woman who's doing that, or person?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say, like, focus on working on yourself. Like, don't think that it's selfish to do self-care. Don't think that it's selfish to, you know, spend that little bit of extra money to go to therapy or hire that trauma coach or whoever it is. Like, this is really the time for us to work on this, you know? Like, I feel like society has kind of got to a point. I mean, just the fact that we see now so many people like on Instagram or celebrities or people talking about mental health, and it's starting to finally, you know, not have so many stigmas. It still has them, but it's starting to fade away. Like, this is the time. This is the prime time to really work on ourselves so that we can raise a more peaceful and loving and kind generation. And then our kids can spread that again and again and again. You know, if we really want to make an equitable, a just world, like, it's our responsibility as parents to heal our own stuff. That's what really spreads. If we heal ourselves, that's healing 7 generations below us. That's the belief in Native culture, right? So if we heal ourselves, we're healing those generations below us. So we want to make sure that we are doing that for this planet, for this world. And, you know, I really hope that, you know, people listening to this will start recognizing something in themselves, like, oh, maybe that's a thing that it's time to work on.
Awesome. I love it. Well, if this resonates with anyone, how do you suggest they reach out to you and connect with you?
One of the best places is Instagram. That's typically where I hang out. So if anyone wants to send me a message on Instagram, you can just hit me up on my name, Kimra Luna. It's KIMRALUNA, or my website, which is the same name, kimraluna.com. You can learn more about me, more about my Slowing the F Down program, and you can hop on my list and join my all-inclusive Discord community where we support people from all walks of life. We even have an anti-racism squad in there. So it's a really beautiful space to be. So if you're looking for a space where you can get support with your healing, and it's totally free. So head on over to my site and you can sign up for that.
Awesome. Kimra Luna, thank you so much. I'm so grateful that we got to take this time together. Wishing you a day.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
All right, everyone. Take care. Bye for now.